Welcome crew. I am Orion. The onboard reference and instructions for operational nodes aboard Artemis. As we begin, it is important that you pay attention to the information presented regarding your role aboard the ship. But do not overlook the instructions for others' roles, as they do hold value to you, even though you are not tasked with their duties. While it is not required to be proficient in all positions aboard the ship, it will make your job easier if you understand what your crewmates can see and do. Let us begin. This is the science console. You can click and drag to view the entire sector the Artemis is currently defending. The most important icon on this map is your ship. Here. Artemis. The green dot. You are here. The mission of the Artemis is to protect these yellow space stations, and any light blue, friendly craft, from being attacked, or destroyed, by hostile contacts. To get basic information on a contact, such as transmitter ID, direction, and distance, you must first select the contact by clicking on them. An information box will appear, with all currently known information. The pulsing, green square reticule, indicates that they have been selected by your console. This reticule also appears on the helm and weapons consoles, to help in targeting and navigation. You can click on nearly anything, including the Artemis itself. This contact is at a heading of 281 degrees, or 281, at a distance of 52,000 meters. Contacts can appear in a variety of methods. Most contacts on your console will start out white, indicating that they have not been scanned. To scan a contact, you must select it, then press the scan button on the lower left corner of the screen, or press the enter button on your console's keyboard. The growing green circle around the contact indicates that they are being scanned. You can only scan one contact at a time. Once scanned, the contact's icon will change shape and color to visually indicate more information about it. Contacts can also be automatically scanned either by the Artemis, a TSN space station, or a friendly craft when they are close enough to it. Sometimes, a great number of contacts will overlap themselves in one area. On the left side is your main zoom control. Zoom in and out by clicking on the various levels, or clicking the top and bottom arrows, or the up and down arrows on your keyboard. If you've selected a contact, and then zoom in, the map will automatically center on that contact. This helps when selecting a specific contact within a large group. Once selected, you can zoom in to see exactly how many craft belong to that group, and then you can scan them. Until a scan is completed, you usually can't see which craft is which in a fleet. Red contacts are hostile craft, most likely enemies of the TSN. The information box will also list who they are, their craft type, and the strength of their front and rear shields. Hostile contacts can be scanned a second time. Revealing information about a ship's captain, the ship's special abilities, damage the ship has taken, and most importantly, the ship's shield frequency spectrum. These 5 bars show which frequency is strongest for the shields of this ship. Currently, E is the weakest. Your job, as the science officer, is to tell this to the weapons officer, so that she can tune her beam to be the most effective against that frequency. Yellow contacts, a surrendered craft. The TSN is a peacekeeping organization, and is not out for revenge. The weapons officer should disengage any weapons lock on these contacts, as to not accidentally fire upon them. Let them leave the sector in peace. A sector may, or may not, consist of a variety of terrain. Terrain is not currently selectable, or scannable, by the Science Console, and cannot be targeted by the weapons officer, so, we will cover what you may encounter, and how they can affect you and the ship. These purple blotches are nebula. Nebula can interfere with various consoles' sensors, and as such, enemies like to hide inside them. The science station can see through nebulas and spot the enemies. Conversely, the Artemis can use the cloak of a nebula to hide, and sneak up from behind on enemies, unseen. Additionally, nebulas interfere with Artemis's warp fields, requiring the ship to automatically reduce to warp 1, while traveling within them. These groups of vertical brown dots are asteroid belts. Asteroids cannot be destroyed by weapons aboard the Artemis, and thus can interfere with torpedoes. Striking an asteroid at high speed can also cause damage to the Artemis. The swirling blue symbol indicates a black hole, or singularity. It will draw anything entering its event horizon into itself, causing extreme damage, eventually destroying it. Finally, these rows of blinking white dots are proximity mines, in a minefield. Each mine can cause serious damage to the Artemis, enemy ships, and friendly ships, like this destroyer which is already too close for comfort. Your communications officer can order friendly ships to change course, so you should probably advise them of the threat. Not everything you will encounter can be listed here, as the universe is a large place, and we do not know even a fraction of what forms of life exist out there. As such, contacts may appear on your screen that have limited information and may not be scannable, such as this pod of space whales. Space whales are fragile and harmless, and quite pretty to look at. Our scientists still have little information about where they come from, or how they live in deep space. It is your responsibility to pass on to the captain what information you can gather regarding these unknowns, so that he, or she, may make the best possible decisions for course of action. Remember, you are the eyes of the ship. Shield frequencies, for the weapons officer. Directions and distances, for the helm. Psychological profiles, and friendly ships in danger, for communications. Unknown, and known threats, for the captain. You must speak up. The science officer needs to be heard by all members of the crew. This is the helm console. Here you see a readout of the basic information of the ship. Over on the right, these buttons control the main screen, including tactical, long-range, and status views. Both the helm and weapons consoles can control what the main screen is showing to you and your crew. On the lower left are the two slider controls for the speed of the ship. You can control the impulse engines with the yellow slider, or the up and down arrow keys. The green, warp drive slider can be set up to warp 4, or by using the number keys, 1 through 4, on your keyboard. The ship can be brought out of warp by pressing the space bar once, and to a full stop by pressing it again. The Artemis can also be flown in reverse, but only while at impulse speeds. This control, on the right, indicates that the ship is in reverse. Turning off reverse will allow you to engage the warp engines once again. In the middle bottom is the maneuvering slider. You can turn left or right, dragging on the slider, or using the arrow keys, or the joystick, or simply clicking on the screen to steer to that direction. These large, green arrows are the attitude control. Clicking an arrow will cause the Artemis to begin to dive or climb. To stop the vertical movement, press the opposite direction arrow. Their zoom controls let you shift through 4 levels of zoom on your tactical display. When enemies are near, always remember to raise the ship's shields, making them active. Lower the shields again, to make them inactive, which saves energy. This image in the corner is your ship status view. It shows the ship's shield state and its general strength. Red dots indicate damage that the Artemis has taken. When we get within 600 meters of a station, as indicated by the number below the icon, you can initiate the docking sequence by clicking on the Request Dock button. Dock to replenish energy, torpedoes, and damage control teams. To leave dock, just engage the impulse or warp engines. This is the weapons console. Like the helm console, you see ship information on the left, and control the main screen with these buttons on the right. You can control the zoom level of your display, and you can raise the ship's shields when the ship is close to enemies. However, the weapons officer doesn't drive the ship. She shoots things. To this end, the Artemis carries 4 types of torpedoes. EMP damages the shields of enemies. Mines are dropped behind the ship, and have a powerful blast radius. The nuke is a homing torpedo, with the deadly warhead of a mine. Type 1 homing are the common, simple torpedoes at your disposal. Choose which torpedo you want, and then choose a tube to load it into. Once the red bars are filled, the torpedoes are in the tubes and ready to be fired. An enemy appears on the tactical display. So, it's important to raise the shields. Now that the enemy is visible, you can lock the target by clicking on it. The spinning red reticule shows that he is my locked target. Your beam weapons require a lock on the target, and the target must be inside the red firing arcs, visible around your ship. Beam weapons can be tuned to one of 5 specific frequencies, to make them more effective against your enemy's shields. At longer distances, the appropriate weapon is a torpedo. You click the fire button to launch from each individual torpedo tube. It's usually wise to reload a tube after you've fired. These torpedoes manage to damage the enemy's front and rear shields, turning them yellow on your tactical display. With a target lock, your torpedoes can be fired at the enemy from any angle. Without a lock, torpedoes fire from the front of your ship, and try to detect and home on targets, including friendly ships and space stations. Finally, click on an empty area when you need to remove a target lock, such as when a ship surrenders and turns yellow. This is the engineering console. It shows an information overview about the Artemis, much like the weapon and helm consoles. It also shows a 3D cutaway view of the ship, which you can spin by clicking and dragging. These blue dots are different systems on the ship. For instance, the warp engines consist of several of these dots. This data readout is a simple display that shows how many of the system points on the ship are damaged. As long as primary beam shows 100%, all of the primary beam system points remain undamaged. There are 3 damage control parties on the ship, shown as blinking, diamond-shaped icons. Click to select one, and click on the location you want them to go. Now, the damage control party is moving through the ship to its destination. When damage occurs, it appears on the ship as red dots. You can direct your damage control parties to go fix the damage. When the autonomous button is turned on, the damage control parties will automatically move to fix damage. But, you can be more efficient by guiding them yourself. while your ship is undamaged. The engineer's job is to control power to these 8 systems using these slider bars. For instance, if the ship is attacking an enemy with beams, you can overcharge the beams, making them more powerful. Warning: this builds up heat in the system, and, if you let it get to the top, the primary beam systems will be damaged. We'll pull the power back, but we still have a large amount of heat in the system. We can counteract the heat by adding coolant to the system. Now that we've added coolant, we can see the system is cooling down. The ship only has 8 units of coolant. Coolant is not depleted or used up, but there is a limited amount. Once you've allocated all 8 units of coolant to various systems, no more coolant can be used until you free some up. To help make large numbers of changes quickly, the engineer can preset and recall power and coolant settings by using the controls on the right. Press Store, then a number, to store the current settings. Pressing a number will instantly recall its stored settings. To reset all energy levels to 100%, press the space bar. To then flush the coolant, press the space bar again. You can flush only the coolant, leaving the energy levels as they are, by pressing the Enter key. The engineer needs to pay attention to what's going on in order to control and overcharge systems when it's appropriate. If the Artemis is going head-to-head with enemies, you'd overcharge the front shields. When running away, or heading back to base, increase power to warp. When a helm officer is turning behind an enemy, you'll want to overcharge maneuvering. In calmer times, overcharging the sensors, to allow science to scan contacts faster, will help shorten battles in the future. Remember, try to keep things cool. This is the communications console. It shows messages that your ship receives from all over the sector. You can click and drag to review previously received messages. In this particular case, it shows that our stations are under attack. But you're not here just to listen. The communications console is the voice of the Artemis. And to talk, you simply select the type of contact with whom you wish to communicate. We'll choose station. And we'll pick which station. And request a status update. DS1 replies with detailed information about their shields, what torpedoes they have, and what they're currently building. You can use the player button to send messages to another player's ship in a multi-bridge game. In this example, your ship is the only player ship, so no options appear here. You can also talk to hostile contacts by way of the enemy option. This list is sorted by distance. So, X-29 is the closest to your ship. You can ask for surrender. Or you can use one of 3 taunts. It appears that specific taunt backfired. It is wise to ask the science officer for information about a hostile captain before attempting to taunt them. Let's try again. That taunt worked perfectly. W-51 is now moving towards your ship in a blind rage. At least for a few minutes. You can talk to a station and inform them that your ship is about to dock, helping speed up the transfer of supplies. You can also order the station to build a specific type of torpedo. If you want to talk to a friendly ship, like this destroyer, you can hail them to get a status report. You can tell them exactly which way to go. Tell them to attack close enemies. Tell them they can go on their way. Or tell them to go defend a station, or other ship. Friendly ships can often help the Artemis with extra supplies, and they occasionally get into trouble. It is a good idea to check in with these ships from time to time. Finally, if the captain believes the crew to be dozing off, he or she can ask the comms officer to initiate red alert. The comms officer is the voice of the ship, and, like the science officer, you cannot do your job silently. You have information that no one else has. So, tell your crewmates what you've heard, and what you're saying. Captain. On behalf of your crew, I wish to congratulate you on your commission and assignment to the Artemis. It is an honor to welcome you. Let me update you on the latest in shipboard technologies, findings, reconnaissance, and tactics. Shipboard advancements. The latest improvements to TSN craft include a new console for your personal use, the data client. This console will cycle through 3 information displays at the press of a button. First, tactical view. A detailed view of the region of space immediately surrounding your craft, similar to a zoomed portion of the science officer's console, intended for strategic and defensive planning. Be aware, due to certain stealth capabilities of the Scouran Corporation, some craft may not appear on this console view, even though the science console continues to register them. Second, long-range scan. A full overview of the sector the Artemis is defending. This is best suited for long-term planning and points of reference for communicating with your helm and science officers. And finally, status view. A 3D view of the status of the Artemis, indicating quantities of energy, torpedoes, and percentages of shields remaining, as well as percentages of ship's systems that are operational and locations of damage, indicated by red dots. Information and strategic updates. A variety of different deep space station commissions have now been authorized for establishment, along the central finite curve. Most stations will have the ability to resupply the Artemis upon docking, but not all stations will be able to create all types of weapons at the same rate. Most of our deep space stations have been upgraded with some level of defensive capabilities, including beam weapons. But, not all stations that you will encounter are military-based, and as such, may be defenseless. In addition to our new stations, we have discovered the construction of new deep space stations by other races. These hostile stations may be armed and can defend themselves. Be aware, these defenses may not be limited to beams and drones. Engage accordingly. Some of these hostile stations are along negotiated sectors of space, but others may be in territories not established by the TSN, but located such that we may consider them imminent threats to our safety. It should not have to be stated, but no TSN craft, including the Artemis, nor any craft friendly to the TSN, may enter into the neutral zone while the truce stands, for any reason. Any craft entering the neutral zone will constitute an act of war. Though we have expanded the number of deep space stations along the central finite curve, the Artemis may be assigned to regions without dedicated deep space station support, forcing you to rely upon friendly ships and rendezvousing with Tinder craft for supplies. In such cases, science officers should also be on the lookout for anomalous readings on their consoles. We have discovered that at these anomalous locations, TSN craft have had their energy stores recharged, or even overcharged to varying levels. Be cautious of overcharged energy stores, as the Artemis has been designed to only hold specific amounts of energy, and excessive amounts can have a negative, or even disastrous effect upon the ship. As the flagship of the TSN, do not hesitate in calling into assistance the use of other TSN escorts and destroyers. They are armed and patrolling sectors for a reason. But, they are not the only friendly craft you may encounter. With the increase of civilian and science stations, non-military craft are reaching out further and further into regions that quite often are unsafe. These unarmed civilian craft include cargo ships, transports, luxury liners, and science vessels. This civilian fleet often includes a rash of problems as well as possible infiltration points by enemy races. All communications from civilian craft are required to be professional at all times. Many infiltrators do not understand the difference between casual and TSN formats for transmissions. Finally, a new race of beings has been encountered, the biomechs. Not a great deal is understood about the biomechs at current. They are not beings within chips, but beings themselves, and, like the Xeno, live in deep space. They feed off of the materials found commonly in asteroids, grow over time, and reproduce when two mature biomechs meet. Like the rattlesnake of Earth, young biomechs' defensive systems can be of greater danger than the more mature of their race, as they may be startled and fire upon craft without provocation, using excessive levels of beam energy. It is TSN policy to overlook these encounters as long as the biomechs do not actively engage or pursue TSN stations and friendly craft. From what we have determined in our encounters, biomechs work on a hive mind, and do not clearly distinguish spacecraft from races and organizations. It is possible that attacking one biomech will cause others to retaliate and attack as well. We have had limited success in communicating with them, but hope that our peaceful methods will resonate with them and, one day, make them allies. Again, congratulations, and good luck, Captain.